On behalf of the W. Homer Drake Jr. Georgia Bankruptcy American Inn of Court, which because of the mouthful that is, we call the Drake Bankruptcy Inn, welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Jim Frenzel and I serve as the counselor for the Inn for the 2014-2015 year. The statewide Georgia Bankruptcy Specialty Inn was chartered by the American Inns of Court Foundation in January of last year, and shortly after formation was named for the United States Bankruptcy Judge Homer Drake, whom we honor today. The purpose of the Inn of Court, which mirrors the judicial career of Judge Drake, is to further professionalism, civility, collegiality, and raise the ethical standards and level of competency in the profession of law, specifically in the case of the Georgia Bankruptcy Inn, in the practice of insolvency and bankruptcy law in the state of Georgia. The Inn membership totals 120 members, consisting of 40 masters of the bench, 25 honorary members who are primarily law professors and sitting and retired judges, many of whom are here today, and younger members recently added to the Inn, consisting of 25 barristers, 15 associates, and 15 pupils who are students representative of the five Georgia law schools, many of whom are here today as well. The speakers today will be in the following order and without further introduction. First speaker will be Judge C. Ray Mullins, who is the Chief Judge of the United States Bankruptcy Court for the Northern District of Georgia, who is also serving as president of the Inn for this year. Secondly will be well-known Atlanta attorney Emmet J. Bondurant, who serves on the 11th Circuit Advisory Committee of the American Inns of Court Foundation and represents the American Inns of Court at today's ceremony. And finally, United States District Court Judge Timothy C. Batten Sr., who shares the same courthouse with Judge Drake here in Newnan. At the conclusion of the remarks by the speakers, we will unveil a plaque of the charter of the Inn and present the plaque to Judge Drake, and then finally we're going to allow Judge Drake to say something. Judge Mullins, if you'll kick us off.
Well, thank you. It's my singular pleasure anytime someone asks me to say some words about W. Homer Drake. I've done a lot of research and so many awards. I could go on for a long time. I know Judge Drake is very humble and may not want me to do it, so I'm going to kind of pitch this and go from my heart. Okay. The, again, stated purpose of the Inn is to foster excellence in professionalism, ethics, civility, and legal skills. I'll start with my first introduction to Judge Drake, and if this was a definition, this picture should be by it. I came to Atlanta in 1987 to Kilpatrick Cody at the time. And I remember this is fall of 1987. So they didn't have reciprocity at that time, so even though I was barred in Ohio, I had to take the Georgia bar. I was waiting on the results. So I think Al Lurie sent me down here to make an appearance on a non-contested matter. And so anybody who knows me knows that I have a horrible sense of direction. So I show up for a 9 o'clock hearing about 6:30 and walk around Newnan for about 2 hours. And then I sit on the bench outside the courtroom for the last hour. And I never laid eyes on Judge Drake, first time appearing nervous, and walks Judge Drake, but I don't know it's Judge Drake. He passes me a couple times. He sees me sitting there. He asked me who I was. I told him, and he invited me back in chambers, told me a lot about the practice of bankruptcy here in Atlanta, told me about various folks that practice here, the nature of the practice, the expectations of the court, and what kind of court. That struck me so vividly that I'll never forget it, because, to be honest, and the older I get, the more honest I get about not varnishing or pushing things back. there's not a lot of people who look like me in this practice all over the country. And I've been doing this since 1987. So when I came here, I was very nervous and very fearful. And first judge I met was Judge Drake. And like I said, he walked me back in his chambers and spent an hour just talking, relaxed, talking. And from that point on, every time I walked in that courtroom, I felt at ease. But the one thing, after talking to him, I realized very clear, when you come in, you better be prepared, you better be civil, and you better be respectful to all the parties there and to each other. And every time I walked in that courtroom as a lawyer from 1987 to 2000, when I walked in there, you knew you were walking into a place where serious business was done, where the court was going to treat you with dignity and respect and demand the same of you, demand professional excellence, demand preparation, and demand respectful treatment to everybody, from staff to the marshals to everybody in the building. And that came through, and that's who Homer Drake is. And so I'll never ever forget that, and that was my introduction really to the practice of bankruptcy here in Atlanta. Judge Drake has been a rock for the bankruptcy system. Came on the bench in '64, and outside of a 3-year stint as partner at Smith Curry, he's been continuously serving the bankruptcy system. He has been on every major committee you could have from DC. He served as faculty for new judges. He served as an administrative office committee on the administration of the bankruptcy system. He testified in Congress, helped usher in probably the best bankruptcy code we've ever had, the 1978 code. He was a crucial part of that, he and others. On education, he's authored or co-authored 3 books and numerous articles. And one of the highlights that will go on for perpetuity, I'm sure, is the Southeastern Bankruptcy Law Institute that he formed over 40 years ago. That was the first bankruptcy seminar I went to, and that would have been '88. And I walked into the Marriott downtown, and lo and behold, there was over 1,200 people. That when it used to be at the Marriott, they'd raise all the air walls. We have 1,200 people. It struck me that all the speakers, no one was from Atlanta. And what I come to find out is not to have competition, all the speakers from out of town. And so it quickly realized that people jockeyed to try to get on the faculty. It was that well run. And so, and that was done to elevate the practice here among the early bankruptcy bench and then nationally. And to this day, that seminar is still run for 3 days every spring, and it's still done in an excellent way. Judge Drake has been recognized in innumerable ways. He's received a Lifetime Achievement Award from Emory. He's received Outstanding Alumni Awards from Mercer. And just so we make sure it's not all about professionalism and ethics, I think probably one of his proudest achievements is bringing football back to Mercer. So we have to throw that in there. So, I just can't say enough. I felt lucky as a lawyer to practice in front of him, and then unbelievably lucky is I have to pinch myself that I actually can call myself a colleague. I came on the bench in 2000, and everything that I felt about Judge Drake practicing in front, it rolled over as this collegiality among the judges. He was always there for help, always there with a listening ear. And then as the bench turned over, never intruded, just always there as a wise rock and always there to look at. And I'll close by saying, I'll take something from what my dad used to say. When I was young, he was an old deacon in the Baptist church, and I never understood it then. But he said, anybody can preach a good sermon, but can you live a good sermon? And Homer Drake lives professionalism, ethics, integrity. So it's my pleasure to be a part of this ceremony. Thank you.
It is my pleasure to welcome this in to the American Inns of Court organization. There are now over 300 inns throughout the United States, of which there are 11 in Georgia, beginning in 1987 with the first Inn, which was organized by Bill O'Kelly and by Judge Harold Murphy. For those of you who don't know the history of the American Inns, the idea originates with Chief Justice Warren Burger, who believed that one of the things being lost in the American legal system and professionalism was professionalism and civility. And that to try to combat that, he thought perhaps the best way to do that was to look to the English model of the Inns of Court. He asked Judge Sherman Christensen of the District Court in Utah and Sherman Cohn, who was a professor at Georgetown, to try to organize the first Inns. And the first Inn was organized in 1980. Chief Justice Burger approached Bill O'Kelly and Judge Murphy and asked them to organize the first Inn here. I was part of the organizing committee along with C.B. Rogers and John Marshall and the two judges. And I can tell you over an almost 30-year period that of all the things that happened within the bar, all the bar meetings, all the CLE, some of which is worthless, the Inns of Court meeting are the most rewarding for the judges who participate, for the senior lawyers who participate, who are called masters, for the younger lawyers who participate, who are called barristers, and for the pupils in law school who participate. It is an extraordinary opportunity, particularly for younger lawyers, to be exposed to the real leaders of the bar with whom they may never have contact in the ordinary course of events. Unless, if you're in a smaller community, that may be true. In a place like Atlanta, you most certainly will never be in a litigation with a C.B. Rogers, or you will never sit down and be able to debate something with Judge Tim Bratton or Judge Tom Thrash. The Inns are the opportunity for all segments of the bar to come together and preach, practice, and put into reality the ideals of the legal profession. The judges take off their robes and become human beings with whom you can have a conversation. The senior lawyers and the younger lawyers work on projects together as part of pupillage groups. And in this inn, as in the others, I would urge all of you to take full advantage of the opportunity, the judges as well as the lawyers. The younger lawyers have an enriching experience. And what we have lost as our communities have grown is the opportunity to be mentored in small communities. As we've gotten to have larger communities, frankly, much of our professionalism has been lost. The Inns do a great deal to restore that. And you could not have a better role model than Judge Drake. I know Judge Drake from way back. I first met him in 1964 when there was a little lawsuit filed in the federal district court before Judge Lewis Morgan, who was a great district judge, called Butts versus Curtis Publishing Company. Homer was clerking for Lewis Morgan. I was the youngest associate at Kilpatrick working on that case. I had been at Georgia. I knew Wally Butts. I knew his daughter was a high school classmate of mine and college classmate, and so on. That was a great learning experience in a great number of ways. It didn't quite turn out as we had planned, but sometimes that happens. But it is a friendship that has lasted almost 50 years. And I have an earlier friendship with his now deceased younger brother, who was a college classmate of mine going back from 1954. But I could be not more pleased to have an inn created in honor of Homer Drake. You are the third specialty inn within Georgia. There is a family inn named for Judge Charlie Weltner. There is an intellectual property inn, and now this is the first bankruptcy inn. And unlike the other inns, such as Lumpkin and Bleckley at Georgia State and Lamar at Emory, you are statewide, which has challenges, but it also has opportunities, because you are a specialized community of practice. So I urge you to take every advantage of this, and I'm confident you will find it, as I have over the last 27 years, probably the most enriching experience, in which you will get more out of it than you will ever put in. So I congratulate Judge Drake, and I congratulate you on creating the new W. Homer Drake Bankruptcy American Inn of Court.
I've been in the Newnan division as the chief judge for about 3.5 years. I say chief judge just because I'm the only judge in the Newnan division. And I've had a good friend take me under his wing since I've been down here in many respects, and his name is Homer Drake. And he commands enormous respect from the bar, from the bench, and from the public. I'd like to talk just very briefly about that. As for the bar, there is no judge in any court who commands more respect than Homer Drake. Lawyers hate to appear late or unprepared because they fear that it will be perceived as a slight unto the man himself. He's that much of an institution. He is not feared by lawyers, he is revered by lawyers. They feel like it would be embarrassing to show up unprepared. There are not many judges about whom that can be said. As for the bench, I'll give you my perspective. I learned in my time of practicing law, 22 years, I knew that appeals from bankruptcy court orders and judgments are taken to the United States District Court. And so when I became a district court judge, I knew I'd be reviewing some bankruptcy court orders. Now, I didn't do a lot of bankruptcy work. I did some, enough to know the difference between a Chapter 7 and a Chapter 13, but not a whole lot more than that. And I didn't do a whole lot, but the question I was asking myself is, do you really think you're ever going to substitute your judgment for that of Homer Drake on a question of bankruptcy law? Now, I'm not saying I've got a rubber stamp in my drawer that says affirmed, go to the Court of Appeals, but I will say that I'd be less than honest if I didn't acknowledge that Homer's orders enjoy a certain presumption of regularity and correctness not widely conferred upon other judges' materials. As for the public, Homer and I like to have lunch together. And invariably when we go to lunch, we'll see somebody on the street or in the restaurant who he knows. And they all are so nice to him. You can tell they just love him. And they, he gets all this respect. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm this Article 3 guy. What am I, chopped liver here with Homer? We leave after meeting these people, and they think I'm his law clerk. So, Homer, you've got it made. You really do. And of course, the reason you've got it made is because of yourself and what you've done in your own life. And I love you. And you're just a marvelous human being.
Judge Mullins, if you'll lead the speakers over here, we're going to have a unveiling of what we're presenting today to Judge Drake. And hopefully the Marshal's Service has got it in a position where we can take it apart without destroying it. And I'll let you guys do that and surround Judge Drake. Judge Drake, if you'll stand and join us, we're going to not ask you to hold it, but we're going to present it to you. Great. And your name will be on a banner for perpetuity here, because that's the cover. There we go. That should do it. And if you'll take a good look, if you'll step around, Judge. This is a plaque of the National Charter of the W. Homer Drake Jr. Georgia Bankruptcy American Inn of Court.
Thank you very much. Just a few words, if I may. This is a beautiful plaque, symbolizing as it does the creation of a bankruptcy, American Inn of Court, in our state. I'm very proud of that. And I accept this plaque on behalf of all the members of the inn. I want all of you here to know that to have this Inn of Court named for me is an incredible honor, one that I shall always cherish for being so identified with such a prestigious addition to bankruptcy law in Georgia, special indeed. I've looked forward to this day, to seeing so many of you again whom I've known for a very long time, and for the opportunity to meet and get to know others of you, particularly the younger members who will be involved with some of the inn's activities. And I would certainly be remiss if I did not tell you how much it means to me for you to take the time and make the effort to come to Newnan this afternoon for this ceremony. And Jim, from what I've heard, but for you and for your vision and your efforts to bring this into fruition, and for the many hours that you've devoted to making this occasion here today possible, I suspect that we would not have a bankruptcy Inn of Court. So thank you so much for undertaking this task. So I want to acknowledge the kind and generous remarks of our other speakers, Tim, Ray, and Emmet. I won't use the words exaggerate or embellish in reference to those comments, but thank you for those warm words. As I learn more about the Inn of Court concept, I've noticed that it shares many of the same characteristics that we tried to instill at the outset in the SBLI, in the Southeastern Bankruptcy Law Institute. Things like civility, collegiality, ethics awareness, actually a mixture and a blend of social and professional interaction. I think that our embracing these qualities can only foster a better relationship between the bench and the bar, as well as between all age groups that comprise the membership of the inn. As you know, the practice of bankruptcy law in our state, and indeed nationwide, has come a long way in the last 50 years, as has the status of the bankruptcy court. Since I first became a referee in bankruptcy in 1964. So it's quite fitting, it seems to me, that this very important component of our legal system should have its own Inn of Court. Perhaps at some of our future meetings we can explore the history of how this happened, how this transformation in the practice and in the upgrading of the court occurred, as well as what remains to be done to make this transformation complete. But that's for another day. For now, I want to thank you again for coming and being a part of a day I shall never forget. Thank you so much.